Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm going to revisit this scene here that I was creating. One of the questions I asked was how to bend this coconut tree, what will become a coconut tree right here. And I was also having problems with Boolean functions here, and it's kind of expected, I guess, that when you do a Boolean function, there may be some issues. And we can actually see that there's some mesh topology problems going on right here with this dotted line. That's a problem. Also, let me activate the viewport shading option so that we can actually see things just a little bit better. And I'm going to go into edit mode, well, not edit mode, object mode, and select this. And we'll notice that when I go into object mode especially, we can see this. We can see that this edge here, this corner, it goes out and then it creates an acute angle and then it resumes a 90-degree angle. That is not normal. And I've tried a number of things off camera to try to resolve these problems, and in the end, if you know how to do it, that's great, but I'm just going to delete that and start over with that. And you know, this bottom portion of the garage, you know, I got the roof as a separate object and I got this bottom portion. There's too many problems with this, but basically to fix the mesh topology, all I need to do is select these two vertices and just delete those vertices by pressing X and telling it to delete those vertices. Now I'm going to activate X-ray so that I can see right through this object. I'm going to select these two vertices on the bottom, that corner vertice and this corner vertice, and then I'm going to select these vertices, just basically the whole object except for the garage door, because that would be a lot of work to redo, and just delete those vertices. Okay, I'm happy with the garage door being the way it is and all that. I'm not going to be showing what would normally be the driveway here. I'm thinking I'm just going to have the camera at all times kind of be like this inside of the image that I'm going to make for the Patreon drawing request, the last Patreon drawing request that I'm going to be doing. So inside of object mode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift A. Now you don't necessarily have to press Shift A, you can just inside of object mode go to add, and it's the exact same option as when you press Shift A. The mesh, curve, surface, Shift A, mesh, curve, surface, it's the exact same menu. Okay, so add a mesh and add a cube. Okay, and now I'm going to grab this, and now one of the things that's really difficult is when you're trying to fit an object into a region like this, you know, you scale it down and it's scaling from the center, and you see this little dot right here. That's called the origin right there. And this weird looking thing that looks like it belongs inside of a carnival, you know, it's got red, white, this is called the 3D cursor. Now, what I can do is I can activate snapping and have it attach itself to vertexes. And with this selected cursor, I can go ahead and move the 3D cursor and have it snap to this vertex right here at the corner right here. And I can go Object, Set Origin to 3D cursor, and you can see that that orange dot, the origin, moved there. So what does this do? When I scale it, you can see that it's scaling from the origin that I just moved. So I'm going to grab this and put it into position and take it off of snapping. And the first way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to grab it and just place it right here. And now that I think about it, I think I'm actually going to move the 3D cursor to this corner right here instead. It's just too much of an irritation having it back here. So Object, Set Origin to 3D cursor. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to press 3 on my numpad and just grab it on the y-axis and put it in a spot that I think is pretty good. Now I'm going to scale it. Awesome. Now let me put it in the side view, and I'm going to scale it on the x-axis. That looks good. And I'm going to scale it on the z-axis. The z-axis inside of Blender will always be up and down. Okay, so I'm going to put it down so that this portion is going right inside of the highest point on the rooftop. Okay, now inside of edit mode, I'm going to press Control R, and that allows me to create a loop cut. Pressing Control R also allows you to be able to use your mouse wheel, and it allows you to create a whole bunch more loop cuts. I don't necessarily need that right now, so I'm just going to click here and click here. Actually, let me press Control Z real quick. Let me show you what happens when I do it the wrong way. Okay, let me grab this vertice and this vertice and grab them on the Z-axis and bring them down so that they rest inside of the roof. If I press Control R, the verticals look good, but the horizontal horizontals are slanted. Let me go into orthographic view. You can notice that this is just kind of sloping down towards the right. Okay, so that's doing it the wrong way. If I press Control R and I have a perfectly horizontal loop cut going all the way around it, and I go like that first, and then I grab these two vertices and grab them on the Z-axis until they're inside of the roof, what happens is when I create another loop cut on this object horizontally, in orthographic mode, we can see that it's perfectly horizontal. This loop cut set the standard for every single loop cut that I'm going to be able to make from this point forward. So this is pretty helpful. Okay, so sometimes you just need to think a little bit ahead and things will work out for you. It's really hard to think that way, but you know, it does work. So now I want to create the other section here, and I actually want to do a few things that I didn't do in the last video. So I'm going to go into object mode, Shift A, mesh, and cube. Now here's something to keep in mind. Let me press Control Z really quick. Inside of edit mode, I can press Shift A and add a cube, but here's the thing. This object right here is within the same collection as this object right here where I'm doing the loop cut. And so that can kind of confuse the situation quite a bit. And I don't want that. I want to have things in different collections. It kind of helps me out. So in object mode, I'm just going to just go ahead and rename this as garage. Now I'm going to press Shift A, mesh, cube. All right. And now I'm just going to grab it and kind of put it into position where I need it. I think I'm just going to use the 3D cursor, and I'm going to activate snapping just for a second so I can put it on this corner. Set origin to 3D cursor. Okay, so there we have it right there. That's excellent. So now I'm going to deactivate snapping. I'm going to press Control 3 so that I can see the back, or at least the left orthographic. And I'm going to grab it and set it so that it's kind of collinear with what I currently have. Let me actually just press 3. Yeah, that looks good. And then I'm going to scale it on the y-axis and try to make sure that it is collinear. Okay, that's good. So scale on the z-axis. Okay, so front view. How's this looking? Okay, so on the x-axis, I want to scale it as well, and I just need to put it into position on the x-axis so that it's like that. Now, one of the things I'm currently struggling with is, like, you know, these archways here? I wish that, let me go into object mode really quick here and just select this here. Instead of edit mode here, let me just, like, this corner right here, I wish there were, like, I don't know how, and if somebody knows, I don't know how to actually see the measurement from here to here and make sure that it's the same measurement from here to here, if that makes sense. It's a little bit of a frustration for me, and if somebody can help me out with that, that'd be great, especially if it's as simple as just going edit preferences and going into the plugins or add-ons, I think, yeah, and just activating something in here, then that would be great. But if I have to pay for it, or if it's something that's, the thing is some people, when they make a plugin or something for Blender, they want to get paid, and if I'm getting paid to make a video or getting ad revenue, they might want some of that ad revenue every time that I use it. So you know, if it's just as simple as going edit preferences and it's something on here, then great. That would be awesome if I could use something in there, if somebody knows about that. So let me go ahead and resume with this object right here. Okay, so we have that square all set up and ready. Let's go into edit mode, and I want to go into face select. Now, there's a couple things that I kind of want to talk about really quick here, okay? There are times when it's difficult to actually zoom in on your object, depending on what you're doing and such like that. It's hard for me to kind of get into a situation where the camera's having difficulty. But if you have that problem, press the period or the full stop key on your numpad. Okay, so this is what I mean by that. Let me go into object mode real quick here, go into grease pencil, and I want to create a new material, at least for me. You don't have to do this. And I want to create an obnoxiously bright red color, and then I want to go into draw mode, okay? Okay, so you have your numpad right here, okay? Awesome, okay? And so within this region right here, you have a number of keys. Let's go ahead and just kind of draw out a tic-tac-toe, or at least for me, I'm going to draw out a tic-tac-toe sort of thing. You have your 1 key here, your 2 key here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, okay? And then you have your 0 key right here, and you have your full stop button right here. That's the button that you need to press when you want to get the camera to cooperate with you. Okay, like if you're having problems zooming in on objects and rotating around them, there are times where instead of the camera pivoting around the object, the camera pivots around as if it's pivoting around itself, if that makes sense. And that can get kind of frustrating. So this full stop button goes a long ways. Now, sometimes also, like when you're doing all of your keyboard shortcuts with your left hand or whatever it is, at least with me, I'm actually using my right hand and I'm drawing with my left. And so it's kind of weird because my hand is kind of crisscrossing across each other while I'm working. But when I have my hand in the region where most of the keyboard shortcuts are, it gets really frustrating to move my hand from the keyboard to the numpad. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create at least some of a keyboard right here. Okay, so within something like this region right here would be your keyboard right there. We have the tab key right there, the Q, W, E, R, T, and Y keys, the QWERTY keyboard, right? Alright, so then you have a number of keys that reside up here, and so you have right here the 1 key, the 2 key, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? Okay, and then we have this wonky looking key. You know, even if I knew the name of this key, most people don't know the name of this key. And this key is pretty freaking awesome because if I press on it, it brings up a whole bunch of different options. So I can go top view and I can see the scene from the top view without necessarily having to move my hand all the way from all of my keyboard shortcuts all the way to my numpad. And I can go front view, orthographic front view with no problem whatsoever. And not only that, but back. Okay, so normally going into back view, it would require me pressing Control and 1. Okay, so that requires like both hands, whereas this is just kind of a lot easier. You know, you got your right view, which is the same as pressing 3 on the numpad. You got your left, which is Control left. So this is a lot more convenient than using the numpad. But a little word of caution here, if you have a Linux distribution or if you have a Macintosh, you may have to go into the properties to try to get some key somewhere on your keyboard to operate like that, because this particular key will not work like that. So I'm going to select all of this and just delete that and go back to this. Also, the 1, 2, and 3 keys on the keyboard, not on your numpad, okay? Let me go into edit mode. If I press 1 on the keyboard, it goes to vertex mode. So if I select this vertice and grab it, you know, I can do that. Now, if I press 2, it goes to edge select, okay? So if I select this edge, it's the second largest thing that I can select, okay? Vertices are the smallest thing you can select. Edges are the medium-sized objects that you can select. Then when I press 3 on my keyboard, not the numpad, I have face select, okay? And that's the largest thing that you can select, all right? So I kind of want to do something different than what I did initially. So what I want to do is I want to get the top view and I want to inset faces and just go like that. Now, one thing that I don't like about this is just how it creates this diagonal vertice. I wish there was a way to get a perfect 90 degrees sort of thing going on, because it just kind of screws up my mesh. So what I want to do at this point is I want to extrude this down on the Z-axis just a little ways, okay? So if I activate the X-ray view, I can see right through it. I can see that I like that. And I'm going to press Control R on this, or actually maybe I might just right click with my mouse and go subdivide, and you know what, that looks just fine. So I'm just left click on it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this face right here, and I think that I'm going to grab this cursor, 3D cursor, and place it, well, I need to activate the snapping, and place it right on that vertice right there on the edge. And I want to go into object mode, object, set origin to 3D cursor, and go back to here. And I want to rotate this, and for some reason it's not rotating the right way. Let me try this. Let me set the origin to this location. Object, set origin to 3D cursor. Okay, go back to edit edit mode, rotate it, and the origin's not moving. And it's not scaling with the origin's not moving with it. That's frustrating. Okay, well, let's set origin to geometry, and that just puts it right in the smack dab in the center, or sort of in the center. One second. Center mass. Okay, that seems like it worked just fine. So now it's straight smack dab in the center. Trying to think about this. Actually, I got an idea how I can do this. I'm going to go to vertex select and grab this central point, grab it on the z-axis, and move it up. Okay, so that creates a slope so that when the rain comes down, the rain will then go ahead and basically move towards the edges of the building. Okay, so that you don't just have a pool of water. Actually, I'm going to grab these 3 vertices instead. I just press Ctrl Z and grab it on the z-axis, and for some reason it's acting weird. Okay, it doesn't need to be like some dramatic slope. It could just be something pretty subtle, to where if you were to walk on this rooftop, you wouldn't readily know that it's sloping. Okay, and another thing that we could have done is we could have grabbed this vertex and grabbed it. Oh, I see what's going on. I need to deactivate snapping. I could grab this vertex instead, like all of these vertexes, and done the same thing. But I don't want it to do that. I just want the water to go straight down this ways. All right, so now what this makes it so that I need to do is I'm thinking about actually doing some Boolean functions depending on if it's going to cause problems for me. But just for good measure, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a horizontal loop cut at the bottom, and I'm just going to put it right there just in case I screw something up. So now I am going to start creating some objects for Boolean actions. Alright, so I'm going to go into object mode, so that like inside of edit mode, I can press Shift A and add like a cube and such like that. But if you notice, I'm still able to press like Control R and manipulate this object. And the reason why is because these are listed as the same object inside of the collections when I add an object inside of edit mode. Whereas when I go into object mode and I press Shift A and add a cube, it just created cube 001. Okay, let me show you. Let me move this, and I press cube right here. It just, it just selected it. Cube 001, it selects this. But let me go ahead and go into edit mode again. Shift A, add cube. Okay, we still have cube 001 selected. So if I press Control R, I could still manipulate cube 001 and this cube 001. Okay, they're both the same object inside of the collections, and we have both of them selected. There's no way that I can just select one of these inside of object mode because they're both part of the same collection. So I don't really like that. I like having things being separate from everything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scale this down on the z-axis, okay, and scale it on the y-axis, and I want it to be wider than it is tall. And yeah, let's go into left view and activate, well, X-ray view is already activated. Okay, so let's place it over here, and well, come on. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. It's still too large, so I'm going to scale it down and grab it. Okay, so grab it on the x-axis and just move it over here. Okay, it looks like I still need to scale it down. Okay, it's driving me crazy. So I'm going to use the cursor and activate snapping really quick here so that it snaps to that vertice in the corner, and then deactivate snapping. Set origin to 3D cursor, and this way when I get it into position, it's going to stay in position. Okay, so that's cool. I just need a way for the rain to drain out of this rooftop. So I'm going to press Shift D in order to duplicate it, and on the y-axis I'm just going to move it all the way over here. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to grab both of these and press Shift D, and on the x-axis I'm just going to move it over here. Awesome. Okay, so now in object mode, I'm going to make sure that I have this selected, and well, actually in object mode, I'm going to make sure that I have the actual building selected here, and I'm going to go into my modifiers, add a Boolean modifier, and I'm going to use the eyedropper on this cube right there, and I'm going to apply it. And so now when I delete this cube, it's gone ahead and deleted it for me. So let me just go into here and just make sure that, okay, it did make a few edges in general that I don't necessarily like, but that's fine, at least for right now. Hopefully it didn't create an issue. Actually, let me press Control Z a little bit. Let me make sure that this modifier is not applied yet, and I'm going to go into edit mode and press Control R and create another loop cut that is right underneath what I'm doing here. That way, this region inside here, from right here, this loop cut at the top and this loop cut at the bottom, it will not be disturbed. Okay, that's at least the theory and the hope. So now I'm going to, okay, if I turn off the visibility of cube 002, I can see that it's gone ahead and done what it needed to do. So I'm going to apply it, and cube 002, I'm just going to press X and delete. Okay, X, you can press the delete key, and if that helps you when you're first starting out, that's good. But the delete key is pretty far away from all of your keyboard shortcuts. So you're going to want to use the X key in the long term, okay? So I'm going to select the building again, add a Boolean modifier, use the eyedropper, and I want to use it on cube 001 and just kind of see that it worked, and then apply it, and then I want to delete cube 001, and that looks good, and select the building again, Boolean, use the eyedropper on cube 004, apply, delete cube 004, and we can see that it did its job. And then select the building again, Boolean, use the eyedropper on cube 003, and then go ahead and select cube 0, well, no, I need to apply it, select cube 003 and delete it. Okay, so we got all of that established. Now we need to create the window, and so let me go into edit mode, and if I press Control R, it does look as though everything is vertical and horizontal the way that I want. Okay, so what I'm thinking about doing is just selecting this face right here, and I'm thinking about right clicking and clicking subdivide, and I'm thinking subdividing it by 8 would probably be good, and so that's a good happy day. Now I'm going to go ahead and select a number of these to, let me deactivate the x-ray view, it's getting in my way. I kind of want this to be a wide window. Okay, so that looks good, and I'm just going to extrude it like so, and I'm thinking I will actually just go ahead and delete these faces because I'm going to have a different object in there. And with these faces right here, I think I can just go ahead and delete these faces as well. And so in object mode, I'm going to press Shift A, Mesh, Cube, and I'm just going to scale this down and kind of start putting it into position. I'm thinking I will move the cursor towards this vertice there and in the corner there, and just set the origin to the 3D cursor. That way, you know, it scales the way that I might want it to. And I'm thinking I will keep snapping on so that I can just kind of do something like that, so that it's like perfectly in place. Grab it on the y-axis, okay, and that looks good. And I think I'm gonna, well, I'm going to deactivate the snapping. Now that I think about it, I'm going to move the cursor to this corner instead, because I have the corner of this object right where I want it, this bottom edge. So now that I'm thinking about it, move origin to 3D cursor at this point. So now I can scale it on the z-axis. Z is always up and down inside of Blender. That looks good. So scale it on the x-axis, and I think I'm going to, well, snapping is activated. That's frustrating. Okay, it looks like it's in the right position. So now I'm going to go Object, Set Origin, Center of Mass, so we can see that's the case. So now I'm just going to scale it on the x-axis. That was pretty wonky. Scale it on the x-axis and extrude it out just a bit so that it has the same measurement on this left side that's kind of overhanging past, same measurement from here to here to here to here, okay? At least that's the hope. I hope I've been doing this right. Alright, so now that we've accomplished that, I'm going to name this Capstone inside of my collections. I'm still inside of object mode, so Shift A, add a plane, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees on the X-axis, and I'm going to scale it down, and I think I'm going to move the cursor to this upper right corner. Set origin to 3D cursor and grab it, and I think, yeah, snapping should be activated. So gonna grab it, put it right here. Okay, cool. All right, so scale it on the Z-axis and then scale it on the X-axis. Awesome. I can go ahead and at some point apply some sort of setting to where I can make it look like glass and make it transparent if I wanted to, or just make it super reflective. So that's cool. So I'm going to press Shift D and right click so that I don't move it anywhere. But if I grab it, you know, I can see that it's a separate object while the original mesh is still there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to deactivate snapping first, and I want to right click and go, let's see, edit mode, right click, subdivide, and it's really difficult for me to see is the frustrating bit. Let me press Control Z really quick here, and let me grab it on the Y axis first, okay? So I'm going to manipulate this away from it and then use the Y axis to move it back. Okay, so in edit mode, I'm going to subdivide it, and I'm going to put a number of these in here. Well, I'm going to put three subdivisions in here, and then press Control R and just kind of do something like that. Control R and something like that. Control R, that looks good. And Control R once again up here. Doesn't need to be as thick as this bottom portion, and hopefully that looks good. One more subdivision over here and one more something like that. Alright, and now I'm gonna press keyboard 3, okay, and select these faces, press X and delete those faces, okay? And now I'm gonna select all of this stuff right here and extrude it just a touch, and it created some faces that I don't want, but that's okay. I can go ahead and, well, actually, do I want those faces? Well, some of them I want to keep, but some of them I don't. So I'm going to select these inner ones that just are going to cause a problem for what I need, and delete those faces, okay? So, yeah, actually that's not bad. Now that I think about it, let me press Control R and add 2 loop cuts, okay? And what this is going to allow me to do is actually create this little track, okay? So I'm going to go to face selecting, keyboard 3, and go ahead and grab these and extrude them down just a touch, not a whole lot. And I'm going to do the same thing within this region right here. Extrude them up just a touch. Alright, so this simulates the idea that this can open and close from the inside. Okay, that's the idea. Let me go vertex select and select these right here within the interior right there, and I want to grab them on the Y axis and just move them in just a touch maybe? No, I want to press E and then right click in order to make sure that I don't extrude it, and I want to scale it in just a touch. And does that make a diagonal? I don't know. No, let's scale it. Oh, okay, I see. Let me press Control Z a few times. Okay, so I'm just going to select, like, Alt click right here. That way I get a loop selection. Let's see if I scale it now. Let me press extrude, right click. Okay, I pressed Control Z a few times. So if you didn't press Control Z a few times, you already extruded it. And if you extruded it again, you have 2 extrusions. That may sound confusing, but basically the equivalent is this, okay? Where you have an extrusion and you created another extrusion. Only this edge would be inside of this edge right here, okay? So yeah, so I'm going to extrude it towards the Y-axis just a touch, and then I'm going to scale it just a touch as well. but I think I did that just a little bit too gung-ho. So extrude, scale. Okay, that looks good. Alt select right here and extrude it towards the y-axis and scale it. Well, I think I went too gung-ho again. Okay, so that looks good. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and grab it on the y-axis. Well, no, I'm going to select all of it and grab it on the y-axis and move it back. Let me set it so that it'll snap to faces. Okay, for some reason it's not snapping to the faces that I necessarily want. Okay, so let me go inside of this object. It's really difficult to see. Let me activate X-ray view so that, well, I'm not able to see anything really in the X-ray. Okay, whatever. I think that's good enough. Let me go into object mode and select this object behind it that I created. That's supposed to simulate the glass, and press Control R on it. Okay, oh, what, right, I'm in object mode. It won't work. Edit mode. Press Control R on it and try to get a vertical going on. And you know what? I need to be able to see the corner there. So Control R, and that looks good. And now I'm going to go face select and select this face and extrude it on the y-axis like so. Okay, so now I have a window right there. So that worked out pretty well. I generally think that most of the time when you're first starting out in Blender, everything you're going to make is a stinky turd, and yeah, that's just part of the learning process. And so if you're starting out with me, I think this is a good thing for us to be practicing, okay? So object mode, let me go ahead and select this, and let's go into edit mode and select this face, right click and subdivide it in edit mode, okay? And we're gonna see how many subdivisions we might want. Let's go 6. 6 sounds good, and I'm gonna select a few of these. That looks good, and extrude it on the y-axis. Not overly too much, and I don't think that I need too much going on with this. So I'm gonna delete those faces, and I think I'm even going to delete these faces as well. In object mode, Shift A, add a cube. I'm going to move the cube up a bit so that when I move the 3D cursor right towards the corner, let me make sure that it's on vertex on the snapping options. Okay, object, set origin to 3D cursor. Alright, I can just kind of change the snapping options to face and grab this, scale it down kind of significantly. Actually, I think I might want the origin to be on the opposite corner, just simply because it's easier to see. So vertex. Okay, so I set it right where I wanted it, right there, I guess. Scale it on the y-axis. Grab it on the y-axis. Okay, scale it on the z-axis. Scale it on the z-axis right there, and then rotate on the x-axis just a touch, so that once again when the rain comes down there's a little bit of a slope that will cause the rain to kind of trickle away from the window. Shift A, I'm in object mode, so Shift A, plane, rotate 90 degrees on the x-axis, and move the 3D cursor to this corner right here. Make sure that it's set to vertices. Okay, object, set origin to 3D cursor, and I want to grab it and, well, let me scale it down significantly and grab it and try to get it to where the origin goes right there. Okay, cool. So now I can scale it on the z-axis just the way I want, scale it on the x-axis just the way I want it. Awesome. So now I'm going to press Shift D, and on the y-axis pull it out just like that, and I want to go into edit mode, right click, well no, right click, subdivide, and I want to give it about 3 subdivisions. And now I want to press Control R and do pretty much the exact same thing that I did on the other side. Actually, I might be able to just duplicate what I did on the other side. So instead of doing this, let me go into object mode and just delete this. Grab this object, press Shift D and move it over here. Turn off snapping, grab it and kind of extrude it out a bit, just a touch, and scale it on the x-axis. Whoa, okay, I see what's going on. Where is the geometry on this thing? Grab it on the y-axis. I'm gonna move the 3D cursor so that it is right here on this corner. Okay, so now I should be able to just grab it and put it in position. and turn off the snapping. Scale it on the z-axis over here. Scale it on the z-axis up here, just like that. Awesome. So now I think I can go into object mode and select this face in the back here and press Control R. Well, I can't see it, so I'm gonna grab it on the y-axis and pull it out and activate X-ray mode. No, that didn't seem to work. Let's just press Z and go wireframe and then press Control R. Well, wait, edit mode. Control R, that's a good spot for it. So click twice right at that spot. Press Z and go solid. Grab it on the y-axis. Press A to grab it all. Grab it on the y-axis, and that's a good position for it. Grab this face, grab it on the y-axis, and just pull it, well, no, extrude it on the y-axis and pull it towards this region right here. And that's cool. Everything seems to check out, so that looks good. So now to address the other elephant in the room from the last video, and this palm tree. Now there's a number of things, or not palm tree, coconut. There's a number of ways to bend an object. Okay, so I just selected this object inside of object mode, and if I go into edit mode, let's go ahead and just press Control R and add a bunch of loop cuts to this thing. Okay, I click and I have 19 of them. Okay, that's good. That sounds great. And what I can do is I can actually select this thing right here. This is called proportional editing. Now I can also press O in order to activate it and deactivate it. So here's what it does. Okay, so if I grab a loop cut here with proportional editing activated and I grab it, you can see that there's this circle around the cursor, and I can use the mouse wheel to change the amount of influence, like the circle or a sphere of influence basically, and I'm able to just kind of really do some cool things with it. So I'm gonna kind of grab it from a few angles to try to get some sort of organic look to it. I can go ahead and grab some vertices up here even. Grab it and move it. I can even rotate it. I'm going to press Control Z a few times. I think it's getting a little wonky. Okay, so that could be the beginnings of the coconut tree, but there is another technique. And that took a lot of effort. So one thing that I can do is I can actually, instead of object mode, press Shift A and go to Curve Bezier. Now when I press G to grab it, you can see that it's just this weird squiggly line. In edit mode, you can see that it looks like it's some sort of thing kind of similar to the pen tool inside of Photoshop or inside of Affinity Photo or GIMP or whatever you're using. So you have your node in the center, okay? Let me press O to deactivate proportional editing. And this is kind of cool. You can see that there is a direction to it. It's got these little marks that make it look like it's got a direction to it, and that's not relevant for this video right here, right now. But you can grab these handles just like the pen tool and manipulate them like the pen tool, but in three-dimensional space. Okay, and that's cool. And you can grab the node itself or the vertex, and you can press E to extrude and have another one. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So what I want to do is I want to rotate this 90 degrees. Well, let me press right click real quick. Let me press A to select the whole thing. Rotate 90 degrees on the x-axis. Let's say 180 degrees. Well, no. Okay, so on the x-axis, negative 90 degrees. Looks good to me. And what I can do is I can just grab this handle right here, kind of try to get some sort of shape that I might want for this coconut tree. I'm going to extrude it out again. Let me get a front view of this, and I kind of just want to get a shape that's somewhat similar to a coconut tree. Okay, awesome. It's hard for me to really visualize this as a coconut tree, but if I press Shift A, well, let me go into object mode, Shift A, and add a curve. Let's go circle, okay? So we have our circle right here, and that's pretty cool. Let me press 3 and just get it into a position where I can actually look at it. Let's go ahead and scale this circle in just a bit, just like that. Okay, so now we select our Bezier curve right here, and it has this option, the object data for it, and we want to go to geometry, use the eyedropper on the bevel, and select this circle, and you can see that it's applied it to the whole thing. Now we can go ahead and grab this circle again and scale it more. Okay, and that looks like that's as thick as I want it to be. And now I'm going to go into edit mode now that I have the Bezier curve selected, and I can actually press Alt S and scale this in to look like a interestingly shaped coconut tree. And in fact, I think I like this a heck of a lot more than I like this object out here. So I'm just going to delete it and grab this one and put it right where it was. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so this video is getting rather long, and the next step that I went about doing was creating the leaves to the coconut tree. Now, there are other people that provide tutorials on this exact same thing here on YouTube. Just, you know, coconut tree. That's like, or coconut tree leaf, Blender 2.8, or just Blender in general. Just follow those tutorials if you've been following along with what I'm doing. I'm not, like, this is me learning the 3D features inside of Blender, and you know, I've actually started to learn a little bit more about the 3D cursor, and as you've been able to see inside of this video, and I've been able to start seeing what I can do with it with 2D while off camera. And so I'm thinking about actually making a refined three-dimensional drawing inside of Blender at some point in time, and then making that refined, you know, three-dimensional 2D sketch, basically, or 2.5D sketch, into an actual 3D model. And I don't know if I'm actually going to convert the grease pencil line work into the 3D model, or if I'm more so just going to use that as a reference for the mesh. But we'll see when the time comes. It's something that I am fascinated with. You know, when I did this leaf, I'm still kind of thinking that there was probably a much better, easier, faster way to do it, and I wasn't following any tutorials while doing this. It's just me trying to figure it out all on my own. And for those of you that are more experienced with Blender, I somewhat think and believe that there are a number of the people that are subscribed to me that are precisely subscribed primarily to just watch my progress, and they already know how to use Blender really well. If you see little moments in the video where it's like, wow, he's going the Orphan Last is going this really long route that of course newbies would go, and you know of a better technique, provide a timestamp. Actually write down what time I did something, and just, you know, leave some feedback. And you know, I really do appreciate people trying to help me out and such. Yeah, of course, you know, I've had a few people offer doing like screen sharing and such like that, and I always try to make good on scheduled events to try to do screen sharing, but you know, sometimes it's really difficult to really work with the time zones and such like that, or to even understand simple conversation sometimes when it comes to time zones. I don't know, it's strange. But yeah, this is pretty much the leaves. I think that one thing that I found out you can do it, but not necessarily how. After I created the leaves, I started to kind of rotate them around the actual coconut tree itself. And, you know, there is a way to rotate an object that is actually local to the object that you're rotating, and not kind of global to the entire scene, if that makes sense. And I think that it started to get them all wonky and discombobulated to some extent. I got it to work out, but it took an extra amount of time, and I'm gonna have to look into that. Just, you know, local axes, like transformations, or you know, it's hard to even know the terminology. You know, Blender, or just generally 3D modeling, is just such a huge, you know, topic. And if you don't, half of learning a program is knowing the jargon. It really is. That's when I learned Photoshop initially. The one thing that I struggled with the most was the jargon. How am I supposed to find the tutorials if I don't know the proper terms for things like photo composite and such like that? And, you know, there's from what I can tell, there is a huge vocabulary, even bigger than with Photoshop, for just 3D modeling alone. And then on top of that, you know, you have texture modeling and such like that, and Blender can do it all, and Blender is intimidating, it really is. And yeah, so I guess I'll just call this good for now. I mean, you can see the scene. I'm not going to slow rotate or anything like that, but I will resume this with another video where I'm going to actually pop into Blender, take some photographs of the scene, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw out the last Patreon drawing request. And I'm going to basically make it into a comic strip. It might not have the best story in the world, but it does illustrate a concept that I've been wanting to get around to towards communicating to variously different people in variously different communities that are interested in making comic books, that sort of thing. There's a number of groups that I participate in with making comic books, and I don't pretend to be the big professional that knows everything about comic books and how to make them or anything like that. But if I can see a tool and I recognize it as being very powerful for comic book artists, and I can even demonstrate it for those that are wanting to get there, then, you know, why not? Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me, feel free to click on the bell or go ahead and follow me on Twitter. If you'd like to have more participation with my community, feel free to join my Discord. A link to my Twitter and my Discord is in the video description below. And if you'd like to support my channel, there's an image of my mascot in the upper right corner of the screen right now. It leads to my Patreon. Any support would be much appreciated. And if you've enjoyed this content and would like to see more, feel free to click on anything else that's appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.